Hello and welcome to Box and Borders. I promised you 20 episodes of 20 fan season end review sort of things, and we're going to try and do that right now. It's Ben here, and joining me right now through the powers of Skype is Stephen. You'll know this guy's esteemed company, a massive City fan. Stephen, where should I start? Pep's first season? What did you make of that?
C+. Maybe C at best. It was an average season. It came pretty obvious about 4 months in that we were kind of getting a little bit carried away, perhaps, and that the club was in a bigger mess than we realised, because you can only paper over the cracks. I say bigger mess, I mean slightly dramatic there. You can only paper over the cracks of the previous season a little bit, and eventually it will start to fall away. And it proved that the first sign of kind of any kind of negativity in terms of any kind of doubting of their ability as players, which was against Celtic and Spurs after that long unbeaten run. As soon as that kind of weakness was actually exposed, the wheels kind of fell off a little bit and they reverted back to type. And it just showed that we needed, you can take someone like Pep to a squad of players, but if they're finishing fourth for the previous season and they're looking fragile and looking a lot older than they did the previous season, you can only do so much. And in the end, it was kind of a season of mixed highs and kind of really low lows as well. And kind of it showed what could be and what was also wrong. And I guess it depends on which side of the fence you sit or which your allegiance is to see if you think it'll go either way. I mean, I'm naturally a positive person, so I'm kind of inclined to take the good performances and the good moments, the moments where we kind of did genuinely outplay most sides, but somehow managed to concede to lose. I'm willing to, for now, give someone like him the benefit of the doubt and say those moments are worth clinging on to, and let's see what he can do when. And every City fan would admit this, when we've got a bunch of players that aren't old and really past it, because there were so many players there. It's already proven that we're just going through the motions. 5 players have already left, and there were 5 players that were most often in the first 18 of the squad. So it shows that we had players that we had no long-term future at City at all. They were just there. So, yeah, it's a very hard one to judge because there's loads of circumstances and you can look at it from many different angles. But for me, I'm just willing to kind of write the season off a little bit and just hope for the best, as every fan ever does, I guess.
Did you think that then your sort of the end of the season, your league position does sum up the season for you? Is that an overachievement, or as long as it's top 4, that's a fine season for a City fan, putting in mind the way the season has gone?
It's definitely not an overachievement, and it's not an underachievement. I'm a firm believer in that the league table doesn't lie. I think in general, the league table shows where the team deserves to be, and yeah, I think we were the third best team in the league this year. I think Chelsea were better than us. I think they deserved it. I think Spurs were better than us. I think, and then the other teams around us were just as inconsistent, just as exposed, just as frail at times, just as good at times. But we were just slightly better than them. So yeah, I think you'd probably say we underachieved given how well we started. Mm-hmm. But I kind of can see why we underachieved. I can see that he made mistakes as well, Pep, in terms of maybe he was a little too expectant. Maybe he got a little bit carried away with how well it was going, if anything, because he did try to advance his methods, or his famously intricate methods, a little bit more when we started so well. Maybe thinking these players could learn how to do a few more complicated things. And it was around that 10-11 game mark where we started trying to mix things up a little bit more that it started to fail. And the first time we saw 3 at the back, and the players obviously didn't have the nous or the intelligence or even the legs for it, that the wheels started to fall off a little bit. So it was just a very middling season. I don't think we overachieved in the league. I don't think we underachieved. I think we were just where we were, the third best team in the league, with a little bit behind a Chelsea team, organised, more controlled, probably with a more rounded squad as well. And Spurs, once again, a team very well drilled, incredibly well drilled, with a younger team as well, again, which I think makes a difference for everyone. I think if you have a younger, energetic, more younger team as well drilled and well coached, I think they're going to do better than an older team as well drilled and well coached, just because Premier League is such a physically demanding league. And yeah, we are where we are, and we deserve to be where we are. Well, if that's a good thing or not, I don't know.
Well, let's chat about some of those new signings anyway, because I think as soon as we knew, and you as a City fan, when we heard Pep was coming to the Premier League, we were expecting some sort of instant impact. Of course, we have learned many years of being football fans that sometimes that isn't the case, and the manager needs a few windows. I think that's safe to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's chat about a few of those new boys that he did bring in. Obviously, very unlucky, I think, this season with Gundogan. He has a lot of potential to be a great City player, but that injury really did sort of halter the season ever so slightly, didn't it?
Yeah, because it kind of happened as well around a time when we really didn't need it to happen, where things were starting to look a little bit hesitant and when the wheels were starting to come off, so to speak, and we were starting to question some of the methods. So we needed someone like him to be around just to alleviate some of the pressure on the likes of De Bruyne and Silva. And De Bruyne, quite notably, for the 2 months, apart from the last 3 or 4 games, he looked a little bit tired. He had a dip in form as well for 2 months, De Bruyne. And you kind of have a think, maybe if Gundogan hadn't picked up that very unfortunate injury, we've had more options in midfield, different ways of playing, players who are a little bit more fresher. We would have had more of a goal threat as well, because he was scoring goals as well in the first few months, whereas De Bruyne, uncharacteristically, was missing open goals. He couldn't hit a barn door. Like, he was genuinely losing a little bit form in front of goal. So it did affect us. It's not the only cause of our form, obviously. But yeah, I think it was a calculated risk on Gundogan in terms of he'd had a couple of unconnected serious injuries, like in terms of a compressed spine or whatever it was, and then another random injury where it was like a dislocated knee. And there were people thinking, well, they're not necessarily muscle wear and tear. They're just 2 injuries that seem to be freak occurrences, and hopefully they weren't indicative of someone who's injury prone. I mean, it looks like it was, unfortunately, that, but I can see why for 20 million, 22, 23, it was, they took the risk given how good he can be on his day. Just unfortunately, that kind of summed up the season a little bit.
Talking about someone else who can be so good on his day, he's proven it towards the end of the season. He seemed to have grown into the City team, Leroy Sane. I mean, he's still a young lad. How excited are you about him, and how would you rate his first season in the league?
Oh, he's fantastic. He's got a lot. I think he can still do more. That's the thing I'm excited by. I actually remember seeing him for the first time against City's under-19s when he was playing for Schalke, and he was the best player on the pitch that day. He was fantastic, loads of pace, and he played almost as a number 10. He was driving through the middle, running our defenders. And then, so I knew a little bit about him anyway, in general. Not loads, but a bit about him when we were signing him. And I was excited because of that pace and that kind of vibrancy, something that we'd missed for a while. Someone who could actually take players on and run at them. Basically the antithesis of Jesus Navas, for example. But yeah, I think he's been excellent. I think he's been a real breath of fresh air. I think if anything, he's shown us something that we've lacked for a long time, because Pellegrini was very reserved the past 2 years of his tenure at City, because he was making the wingers, someone like Sterling, he'd come to City as a reputation as a vibrant, energetic winger. He was making them wait for overlapping fullbacks, so there was no license to attack people. They would be very cautious, and he got very sterile. So having a young winger who can run at people and have that much natural flair and ability, it was exciting. And everyone loves a winger. There's nothing more exciting in football than someone taking someone on. That's just a fact, you know.
I'd argue with that. I say another quite exciting thing to see is a young central defender who looks like he's got it all and he's not scared of putting a tackle in. And that's what it looked like City was buying with John Stones. However, he has ended out the side. He has ended up with a lot of, let's say, negative criticism coming his way, and we've just spoken there glowingly about Sane. What do you have to say as a City fan about John Stones? Is it going to be a slow start to his City career, or do you think that he's really got a place to fight for now?
It's weird with Stones, because he actually started pretty well and City fans were happy with him. Then he had a dip when everyone else did. Then he had a few games where he was good again, and then he had an injury and then he was out of the team. So Stones has been bought purely based on what he potentially could be, because he's not been bought, in my opinion, on what he is now, because I don't think he was ever the fee that we paid for him. I think he's been bought with the English tax, so to speak, in terms of obviously the price the Premier League adds to any English player, and because he's comfortable in possession, which is a rarity for a homegrown player and a defender. I don't think he's even that good a passer. I think what he is, he's very composed, and he's got the mentality, at very least, to be a little bit of a leader, and he doesn't panic ever, which is one of his traits. I don't think he's as good a passer as Company or even Otamendi, but he doesn't panic, which I think is a rarity for a young English defender. So that's why Pep obviously pursued him and thought it's going to be hard to find. We have to fill homegrown quotas somehow, and he's a good player with good potential, but prone to errors. He's basically been very up and down. Not as bad as some people think, not as good as others would have you believe either.
Yeah.
He has had some mistakes in him, definitely. I'm not going to deny that. It's weird, though, because as ever, when you watch a team week in, week out, and United fans will know this from Pogba, in terms of the opposition fans tend to only ever see the bad bits. And they'll see the bits and mistakes on Match of the Day because they're brought up. Whereas the fans who watch them every minute, and I'm not having that everyone, all these games kick off at the same time. United, Arsenal fans, Liverpool fans aren't sat watching every City game. They're not. And the same way I'm not sat watching every Arsenal, United, Liverpool game, because it's not possible to do it unless you're sitting there with Sky Plus on. You've got 15 games recorded, which they're not doing anyway. But in general, we see the 90 minutes and we see the bits that are good, and then you see the bit in the 85th minute where he's done a short back pass to the goalkeeper, and you think, God damn it, John, And that's on Twitter then, and that's on Match of the Day, and that's the bit the pundits are pulling to pieces. So I guess once again, it's similar with Pep. I guess it depends if you want to take the good moments and presume that's going to be the future, or the bad moments and say that's going to be the future. Stones, I'm indifferent to. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good player. I don't know how good he'll be. He's got a lot to learn, but again, I guess he is young, and he said himself that he's improved exponentially this year in terms of his game understanding. And I guess Pep looks at someone like him and thinks, well, PK, homegrown over in Spain in terms of he's a local lad. He was there for a long time, and he eventually learned off Puyol and became the leader. I'm wondering if he's thinking Company can do the same to Stones, then Stones eventually steps in and becomes the leader too, because Stones does have that leadership traits. Pep is always calling him over to silence, talking to him, saying, passing on instructions. He obviously sees that mentally there, but it's just going to take a little bit of time with him. I think he'll rotate centre backs a lot. I think that'll just be a thing he does. And I suspect we'll see Stones start just as many games as Otamendi next season. I think Company, if he's fit, will be the one that's the omnipresent kind of guy, obviously. But I just think he's got a long way to go to prove. I don't think he'll ever prove his worth, I guess, because I don't think everyone ever lets anyone prove their worth.
No, not in today's football.
No, not at all. But I've seen Otamendi get better in the past 10 games alongside Company, so I'd love to see Stones alongside Company.
Maybe
but if either of them, I don't know if either of them could be the man that can lead when Company's not there. The one that I would say would be more likely would be Stones, because he's younger and he has leadership traits. Otamendi is headless, so I hope Stones. He's great alongside Company, but on his own he's headless. So I'm hoping Stones can be the one that can learn that role, because I think he's younger, he's got a little bit more of that mentality at least.
Let's see if Pep holds patience in him. Be very interesting next season to see what happens with John Stones. Now, we could chat about Gabriel Jesus as well, but I don't think there's much point, because all I'm going to say is watch him next season, because he's just ridiculous. He is so good. Instead, seeing as we're talking defence, let's talk about a negative. You're a positive guy. I know that's Stephen, but let's chat about the biggest, I think, negative from City this season, and that is defensively. And it sort of started out last summer when Pep first joined the club, when the whole goalkeeping fiasco went on. Joe Hart, we know, is a much loved figure around City. He was a big influence. He's a massive player. Of course, that whole thing happened with a keeper situation. Then defensively, City haven't been great this season. So, as you as a City fan, was you disappointed with Joe Hart's treatment? Are you now, as a City fan, a bit disappointed with how the goalkeeping situation has evolved at City over the past 12 months? Overall, what's your sort of take on that?
I don't necessarily think it's as simple as Bravo isn't good enough, therefore Joe Hart is the man. I think that both. I think Joe Hart. I think Joe Hart was a little bit look at me during the whole thing. I really love Joe Hart, but I also can, same way I love my brother, I can also admit sometimes he's a bit irrational. I think Joe was a little bit. I'm doing all I can. He was very clever during the summer, Joe Hart. He was very much getting the fans on his side. He was laying the foundations for an outrage when he left. And I kind of see why we didn't keep him. As simple as that. There was a pre-season friendly when we played Arsenal. Was it Arsenal? It was Bayern. I think it might have been Bayern last summer, where there'd been loads of noise about Hart leaving, about Pep looking for a new keeper, and about Pep come out and said, we're trying things, we're trying to teach players the way they want to play. And it was almost like a protest from Hart, and it was incredibly challenging. A lot of City fans picked up with this as well, where during that game, and we all know how Pep wants keepers to pass it, Hart kicked it long every single time. It was almost feeling like that. It felt childish. It felt like when you tell someone a school kid not to do something, and they do it just to prove a point. And in a pre-season friendly, then Caballero came on in the 60th minute, passed it short every single time. If he's just done that, why is Joe Hart just kicked it long every single time? That is obviously against instructions, or obviously he can't do it. I miss Joe Hart a lot. I mainly miss him because he was a bit of a leader for the team, and he was a very vocal presence. But maybe that's one of the reasons why he went. Maybe he was seen as very outspoken at times, and he's very outspoken, Joe Hart. I'm not trying to call him after he's left, because I think he's a fantastic keeper, but I think he was, in general, not the man he was 2 years ago. I think his form has been up and down, capable of brilliant nights where he saves loads, but he also capable of happening and making mistakes, and I think that's happened over in Italy as well. I wouldn't be asked about seeing Joe in goal again, because I love him, but I understand why we've moved away from him. I think Bravo, he's had a bad case of the yips or something, because his head's gone since he's moved to Manchester, because he's not as bad as what's happened here. I don't know what's happened there. Sometimes a player just doesn't work out, and Bravo has gone from being the man that Chile used to lead them to 2 Copa Americas and being their captain and their most respected senior international player, and to being Barcelona's first choice keeper, to a man who's just ridiculed as one of the worst Premier League goalkeepers of all time. There's something that, to me, is just, that's not right. Something's gone wrong somewhere. You don't go from being that good to at the very bottom all of a sudden. It's not like every keeper from that league is going to fail. Caballero was in that league, and he didn't go from being that good to that bad. It's not like there's some kind of discrepancy in the quality of the keepers that will bring him down this level. For whatever reason, he's just not settled here. It hasn't happened for him, and he's lost all form. And I kind of do believe that when players are confident, they're quicker. The players are confident, they look sharper to the ball, they're quicker. When goalkeepers are confident, they look bigger. Their reflexes seem to be better, and they seem to take up more space in the goal. And with Bravo, it's gone the other way. He looks unconfident, looks unsure of himself, and he looks small in goal. He's not a big guy anyway, but he looks even smaller. Like the shots that go just past him. And he was a keeper that was known for having good reflexes, because most smaller keepers are known for that reason, in terms of their instincts and their reflexes are very good, because that's what they have to be to make it to the top. And that's gone as well. So, whatever reason, it's been a catastrophic failure. We'll be honest with Bravo. I don't think the Hart thing is that connected, personally. I can see why we moved Hart on. I think we did hope Bravo wouldn't be as bad as he has been, because I don't think anyone saw that coming. I don't think there was anything to suggest that either. And it just hasn't worked out well. But that was a failure, and sometimes you get stuff wrong. I wouldn't say we should have kept Hart, because I think neither was the solution looking back. I think I can see why we're in for Edison at the moment, because I think we need to solve that problem. But yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I take it that you won't be picking Bravo as your player of the season off the back of that. But what we will do, before I ask you, we'll just get some City stats, shall we, from the last year gone by. Some of these, actually, very interesting. They've averaged, over this last season, 2 goals per game is the average, which isn't bad from an attacking point of view.
Should be better than that as well.
Yeah, it should be. 85.5% pass accuracy. That's typical Pep, I think. 16 shots per game, which, when you then look at the goals per game ratio, sort of sums that up. Only 4 red cards this season. They keep their discipline very well. Top assist from Kevin De Bruyne with 18, and Aguero with the only 20 goals. Just typical Aguero. He turns up, doesn't he, every season. Stephen, for you, who is your Manchester City player of the year?
David Silva, the most underrated player in the Premier League.
Again. Yeah. Why? Tell us more.
Because the best thing about David Silva is that we all love him, City fans, and we all kind of wondered if his slightly dodgy ankles and his aging physique would be able to handle a more intense kind of pressing game under Guardiola, because a lot of players got unintentionally complacent under Pellegrini. Even he wasn't running as much as he'd done previously. He was kind of shirking out tackles and kind of hanging around as a second striker. And people thought, is he getting a bit older? Is he getting a lot more niggly injuries? Is he going to be able to adapt to the Pep style? And he adapted more so than most would imagine. If anything, he became our leader on the pitch when company wasn't there. He started playing a number 8 role, which for him was a new role. He was kind of crunching the tackles. He was basically dictating play, leading us. And him, more than anyone, when he wasn't on the pitch, it was a clear drop-off in ability to keep the ball. He kept us going. And that's why we basically just cloned him and bought another Bernardo Silva, because we realised that when we haven't got him on the pitch, we just don't keep the ball anywhere near as well. And that whole idea, that whole style of how we play, it just falls to pieces from the off if we can't keep the ball. And David Silva sums up that perfectly. He's a fantastic player, immensely graceful, never moans, keeps his head down. The City fans love him, and he's adapted to the style even better than any of us can imagine in a new role, and he looks fitter than ever. And I think it's a shame he doesn't score more goals. It's a shame maybe he doesn't play for another team. I know I sound like I've got a tin hat on here, because if he did, he'd be getting more recognition, because David Silva is one of the greatest players I've ever seen in football, in my opinion.
Amazing. Yeah. He's just a magician. He's a little magician. Yes. I think that's all we can say about David Silva. Just quickly, before we end this up, Stephen, I just want to go into your mystic minds. I love a prediction. So, will Pepsi out next year? No, I'm joking. So, where is City going to end up next year? Are you going to be title challengers? Is the trophy going from London to Manchester and to the Blues?
Well, we'll be a lot better than this year, and we were third this year. So
second.
we are definitely in the hunt. We are definitely going to be there for the last couple of games, at least. I'm almost certain. I think, arrogantly, I guess because I'm a City fan and I'm biased, I think the best of what we've seen of Chelsea is already probably the best that they're going to be. I don't think they're going to get that much better because they've got a young team at their very peak. I think we've got our ceiling limit. I think we've got nowhere near it yet. I honestly don't think we have. We've got a lot more to go. I can't see Liverpool strengthening anywhere near as much as they probably need to take the next step. And Spurs are permanently stuck in kind of like the underdog mode. They need to get out. They got a mental block. Arsenal, United. It depends what they do in the summer.
Give me a prediction. Go on, Stephen. Stick your neck out. Where is City going to finish next season?
We're going to win the league.
You'll win the league. Love it. That's what I wanted to hear. That's just what I wanted from you. This is going on the internet, by the way, Stephen. So this time
I've had
next
worse than this. Trust me. I did a video a year ago, on one of my first videos of We Were Rising TV, where I was told to do it because Squawker said Pogba was signed for City. Bloody hell, that was my second ever video on the internet. And I was there just basic as a catalyst for that opinion, not to do anything else. And I had... like 4,000 retweets with me tagged in a clip of me predicting Pogba to go City, even though I never even said it. Someone else said it for me, and I was in that clip. So this is the least embarrassing thing I've ever potentially said on a video, so don't worry about it.
Who doesn't love a fan channel video coming back to bio? I think it's Housen who said something great about Pep, didn't he? And then he joined City. I don't know. I can't remember now, but that was a funny moment as well. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on, buddy. I look forward to chatting to you throughout next season and also over the summer transfer window as well. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, man. Thanks very much.
Box and Borders, make sure you subscribe. 19 more end-of-season reviews on the way.